Have you ever shared something with your family, something close to your heart, only to lie awake that night thinking, maybe I shouldn't have said that? If you have, you're not alone. We all reach points in life where we feel the need to open up, especially as we grow older. We want to pass down what we've learned, share the stories that shaped us, or maybe just feel closer to those we love. But here's a gentle truth. Not everything needs to be said to be understood. And not every truth brings people closer. In fact, there are some things, personal, emotional, deeply lived things, that, when left unspoken, protect more than just your own peace of mind. They protect your dignity, your strength in the eyes of your family, and the harmony in your relationships. This doesn't mean hiding who you are. It means learning which parts of your life are best kept sacred, not secret, sacred. Held close, like a private garden of experience and growth that doesn't need to be walked through by anyone else. So today, we're going to have a real, heartfelt conversation. Just you and me. We'll talk about 5 things that, as we get older, are better left unsaid. 5 things we may feel the urge to share, but should think twice about. And trust me, this isn't about bottling things up. It's about choosing peace over pity, strength over sympathy, and wisdom over worry. Let me start with a story. There was a man named Mr. Lawrence, a quiet, thoughtful craftsman who spent decades building furniture that would outlast him. He had strong hands, a strong back, and a soft spot for his granddaughter, Emma. One day, while sipping tea together, he shared with her a story about a time long ago, how he once went into business with a man he trusted, how it all fell apart, how he lost almost everything. Emma listened, her eyes wide with sadness. Not the kind of sadness that connects, but the kind that makes you feel different. Less seen for your wisdom and more for your wounds. You see, Mr. Lawrence thought he was passing down a life lesson, but what he ended up doing was shifting how she saw him, from strong to scarred, from guide to someone who needed saving. That single conversation stayed with him for weeks, not because he regretted the lesson, but because he realized something important. Sometimes, in trying to help the next generation avoid our pain, we pass that pain directly to them. And that's why the first thing worth keeping to yourself is your biggest past mistakes. We all have them. Maybe you trusted the wrong person, made a financial decision that backfired, or hurt someone you loved, even if unintentionally. But here's the thing, those mistakes made you who you are. And the fact that you grew from them, that you've kept going and built a life with meaning, is enough. You don't need to reopen old wounds just to prove that you've healed. Sometimes just saying, "I learned that lesson the hard way," is enough. Holding those stories privately doesn't make you secretive. It makes you wise. It allows you to stay the strong pillar your family needs. And it spares your loved ones the helplessness of not being able to fix what's already been lived and learned. Your journey is valuable, yes, but it's yours. And it's okay to keep parts of it just for you. Now let's talk about another part of life we often feel tempted to share. Those minor health issues that come and go, the aches that linger in the morning, the restless nights that leave you yawning by noon. You know the ones. Maybe it's your knees after a walk, or the little stiffness that's become part of your daily rhythm. It's natural to mention these things, especially when your children or grandchildren ask how you're doing. But let me ask you this. When you share these things, are you looking for comfort or connection? Let me tell you about Mrs. Eleanor. She's 72, loves her flower beds, her afternoon books, and her Sunday phone calls with her daughter. One day, while chatting over tea, she casually mentioned her knees were getting stiff. By the end of the week, her daughter had sent her 3 articles on joint supplements, called twice to suggest seeing a doctor, and even offered to drop off a walker just in case. Now her daughter meant well. She was trying to help. But Eleanor didn't want to feel like a patient in her own home. She wanted to feel like the mother who raised a capable woman, the grandmother who still chased butterflies with her grandkids. Instead, she felt reduced to an ache, a diagnosis waiting to happen. And so, Eleanor made a choice. She stopped sharing every minor pain. She still looked after herself, of course she did. But in her conversations, she talked about the tulips she planted or how the breeze felt that morning on her walk. She focused on the joys, not the joints. And you know what happened? Her daughter began to see her strength again. Not her fragility, not her discomfort, but her presence, her vitality, her stories. It's not about pretending we're invincible. It's about choosing what parts of ourselves we lead with. Do we lead with our light or with our limp? Because here's the truth. Your family wants you to be well, but they also want you to be happy. When every conversation turns into a symptom checklist, it starts to feel like life is nothing but a countdown. But when you speak of your passions, your day, your hopes, it reminds them, and yourself, that you're still living fully, that your spirit is stronger than your stiffness, that you're here to share life, not just ailments. And when real health concerns come along, as they sometimes do, your family will be ready to listen. They'll understand it's serious because you've chosen your words carefully. You've shown them that when you speak, it matters. That your silence isn't avoidance, it's grace. And your words are gifts, not weights. So, whether it's the past you've walked through or the pain you quietly carry, know this. Your strength doesn't lie in how much you share. It lies in how deeply you've lived. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And that's where we'll continue, because there are more moments, more gentle truths that are worth holding close. Not out of fear, but out of love. There's a quiet strength in choosing what not to say. And sometimes, it's not just the aches or the mistakes we hold back, but the dreams that never quite came true. You know the ones I'm talking about. Maybe you once wanted to be a painter, a singer, a teacher, or travel the world with a backpack and a notebook. These weren't childish fantasies. They were real, living dreams that flickered in your heart for years, maybe even decades. But life had its own plan, didn't it? Bills needed paying. Children needed raising. And somehow, those dreams slipped into the background. Still, they never really disappeared. They stay with us, like old photographs tucked away in a drawer. Sometimes we pull them out and smile, other times we wonder what if. That was the case for Mr. James. A quiet, kind man who spent his working years as a mechanic. He was good at it too, honest work, steady hands, and a reputation in his neighborhood for getting things done right. But in his youth, James dreamed of being a musician. He loved the guitar, spent hours in his small room learning chords by ear, letting melodies take him places even when his feet couldn't. He never got to chase that dream. Life offered him a different stage, one of responsibility, not rhythm. But the music never left his heart. One afternoon, while chatting with his teenage grandson, James opened up. "Hey, wow." He told him about the guitar, the songs, the long nights playing until his fingers hurt. At first, his grandson was curious, but then his expression changed. It wasn't excitement, it was sadness, and maybe even guilt, as if James had sacrificed that dream because of the family. James didn't blame him, but he felt the shift. What he meant to share as a sweet memory had turned into a shadow, a sense of regret that filled the space between them. And that's when he realized some dreams are meant to stay folded quietly in the heart, not because they're unimportant, but because they're personal. You see, when we speak of dreams unfulfilled, we hope to be understood. But sometimes, especially by those who haven't lived as long, those dreams are heard as disappointments, as if our lives were somehow incomplete. But you and I both know that's not the case. The life you lived, The one filled with long days, small victories, family dinners, laughter, struggle, resilience, that life is beautiful. Just because one dream didn't bloom doesn't mean the garden wasn't full. Mr. James began to see that too. He didn't need to tell his grandson about the music to feel close to him. Instead, he started sharing the joy he took in his work, the satisfaction of fixing something, the patience it took, the way every engine had its own rhythm. And slowly, his grandson started to hear the music in those stories. He saw that passion doesn't only live in guitars. It lives in commitment, in craft, in showing up day after day. We don't have to tell every story to be seen. We don't have to share every longing to feel understood. Some dreams, especially the tender ones that never came to be, are better kept like pressed flowers, beautiful, fragile, and preserved. Not because we're ashamed, but because their meaning is deep and personal. And unless someone has walked that same path, they may not know how to hold it. And now, let's talk about something even closer to home, our feelings toward our own family. Because as much as we love our children, our siblings, or even our grandchildren, we sometimes feel disappointed. Maybe they made a choice we wouldn't have made, took a path that seems risky, or drifted away when we had hoped they'd stay close. It's a hard feeling to carry, this quiet sorrow that the life we imagined for them isn't the one they're living. And as we get older, we may feel an urgency to say something, to steer them, to warn them, to guide them back. But here's the truth. Even words spoken from love can land as judgment. Even the softest correction can feel like rejection. That's what happened to Mrs. Amelia, a retired librarian who believed in the power of planning. She built her life on structure and safety, and she hoped her daughter would do the same. But her daughter had dreams of owning her own business, no guaranteed income, long hours, and plenty of unknowns. It made Amelia anxious. One day, unable to keep it in, she gently suggested maybe her daughter should consider something more stable, something with a pension, a company health plan. But instead of feeling supported, her daughter felt small, like her mother didn't believe in her. And that hurt. Amelia hadn't meant to cause pain. She just wanted her daughter to be secure. But the conversation left a mark. Their phone calls became shorter. Her daughter stopped sharing the little wins, the proud moments. A wall had gone up. And Amelia, heart heavy, did something brave. She stepped back. She stopped offering advice unless asked. She began listening more, not with the ears of a mother worried for her child, but with the ears of a woman learning from another. She made space. Subtle things at first, but enough for Robert to notice. His heart sank. What had started as a gesture of love, a promise of security, had become something else entirely. A point of quiet tension, a shadow that crept into every interaction. And in that silence, Robert came to a realization. By putting numbers before moments, he had unintentionally changed how his family saw him. Not as the father who read them bedtime stories, or the man who worked late to pay for piano lessons, but as the keeper of future money. And that broke his heart. So he made a change. He didn't undo his plans. No, he kept everything in order, just as carefully as before. But he stopped talking about it. He met with an advisor, set up the documents, made sure everything was clear, but privately, quietly, with dignity. Then he turned his focus back to where it mattered most, being present. He invited his sons over for barbecues, watched games with them on Sunday afternoons, took his grandson fishing, and in doing so, he found something more precious than anything in his will, a return to connection. No longer shaped by expectations or quiet calculations, but by laughter, stories, and shared time. You see, when you talk too soon about inheritance or asset distribution, even with the best intentions, it can create a space where love gets clouded by money, where siblings begin to compare, where children begin to see you less as a person and more as a provider. And that's not the kind of legacy most of us want to leave behind. Because the true value of what you pass on isn't in property or percentages. It's in the lessons you taught by example, the memories you built over years, the hugs, the phone calls, the way you made people feel safe just by being there. That's what lives on. Keeping your estate plans to yourself until the right time doesn't mean you're hiding something. It means you're choosing peace. You're protecting your relationships from unintended strain. And you're giving yourself the freedom to change your mind if life changes, as it so often does. More importantly, you're keeping the focus where it belongs, on today, on presence, on connection. Because when the time does come, what your family will remember most isn't what you left behind. It's how you made them feel while you were here. Think about that for a moment. Isn't it more meaningful to pass on a legacy of wisdom than just wealth? To show your loved ones how to live well, instead of simply giving them something when you're gone? Mr. Robert realized that. And in the last years of his life, he gave his sons something no bank account ever could: his time, his undivided attention, his stories, his laughter. And in the end, when the paperwork was opened and the plans were revealed, his sons wept, not for what he left, but for who he was. That's the kind of legacy we all have the power to leave. So if you're sitting with plans tucked in a drawer, thinking of talking them through over Sunday dinner, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is this really the right time? Or can this wait so that today can be about joy, not logistics? And as we come to the heart of this message, let me say this clearly. Your worth is not defined by what you give. It's defined by who you are. And the love you offer every day, that's what your family treasures most. So let's take a moment together, just you and me, and reflect on everything we've talked about. Maybe you've shared too much in the past. Maybe you've felt the sting of being misunderstood or the weight of regret after opening up a little too far. That's okay. There's no judgment here, only growth. Every moment is a chance to choose differently. And if you've been carrying something quietly, an old mistake, a little ache, a dream that never took flight, a twinge of disappointment, or the careful plans for your future, know this: it's okay to hold it close. It doesn't make you distant. It makes you wise. Your silence can be a gift, a space for your loved ones to see your strength, your grace, and your unwavering presence. A space for you to breathe, reflect, and live your days in peace. You are not your regrets. You are not your pains. You are not your possessions. You are the way you love, the calm you bring to a room, the lessons you teach with your quiet example. That's what will stay in the hearts of those who love you. So, if anything in this conversation has touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share one thing you've learned, or one moment when holding back turned out to be the best decision you made. Your words may help someone else find their own peace. And if this message meant something to you, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe so we can keep growing together. Here's to the quiet strength in all of us, to the wisdom that doesn't need to shout, and to the beautiful unspoken legacy we leave through love, through grace, and through presence. Thank you for being here with me. Until next time, take care of your heart, protect your peace, and remember, you are more powerful than you know.